The Great Emu War, 1932, Australia. Imagine a war where the enemy isn't a foreign army or rebels, but birds. Yes, actual emus. In 1932, Australian farmers were struggling with an overwhelming emu population that was devastating crops. Desperate, they called in the military, who deployed soldiers with machine guns to eliminate the emus. However, the large, flightless birds were too fast and resilient, dodging bullets and scattering before real damage could be done. The military ran out of ammunition before the emus showed any signs of retreating. In the end, the Australian government accepted defeat, and the emus remained victorious. To this day, it remains one of the strangest military failures in history. The Dancing Plague of 1518, France. In July 1518, residents of Strasbourg, France witnessed one of the most bizarre medical mysteries ever recorded, a dancing plague. It started with one woman, Frau Trofea, who began dancing uncontrollably in the streets. Within a week, dozens of people had joined her, moving frantically for hours and sometimes collapsing from exhaustion. By the time the phenomenon ended, hundreds were involved, and some had literally danced to death. Historians still debate what caused this event, with theories ranging from mass hysteria to ergot poisoning, a hallucinogenic mold found in rye. But to this day, no one knows for sure why these people couldn't stop dancing. The Phantom Time Hypothesis. What if I told you that we might not actually be living in the year 2025, but somewhere in the 1700s? This is the essence of the Phantom Time Hypothesis, proposed by German historian Heribert Illig. He claimed that almost 300 years of history, between 614 and 911 AD, were completely fabricated by Holy Roman Emperor Otto III, Pope Sylvester II, and Byzantine Emperor Constantine VII to legitimize Otto's rule. If this were true, events like Charlemagne's reign never actually happened. Most historians reject the theory, citing overwhelming archaeological evidence from the supposed missing years. But it remains one of history's most mind-bending conspiracy theories: Napoleon's bunny attack. Napoleon Bonaparte, one of history's most formidable military leaders, faced countless battles, but one of his strangest encounters was with an army of bunnies. In 1707, Napoleon ordered a rabbit hunt to celebrate a military victory. His men captured thousands of rabbits and released them for the hunt. However, instead of running away in fear, the rabbits charged directly at Napoleon and his men. The general, who had faced entire armies, was utterly unprepared for this bizarre onslaught. The attack was so overwhelming that Napoleon and his troops had to flee. The most likely explanation? His officers had accidentally captured tame, domesticated rabbits that expected to be fed rather than hunted. Operation Paul Bunyan, 1976, Korean DMZ. In 1976, 2 American soldiers were killed by North Korean troops while trying to trim a tree in the Korean Demilitarized Zone, DMZ. In response, the U.S. launched Operation Paul Bunyan, one of the most excessive military operations ever carried out over a tree. Within 72 hours, they deployed a massive force: aircraft carriers, B-52 bombers, attack helicopters, and over 800 soldiers, all armed to the teeth. The goal? To chop down the tree. North Korea, seeing the overwhelming display of force, stood down without a fight. The mission was successful, and the tree was removed, but not without showing the world how tense Cold War-era conflicts could become over something as trivial as a tree. The trial of a dead pope, 897 AD, Italy. The Catholic Church has seen its fair share of scandals, but none quite as absurd as the Cadaver Synod. In 897 AD, Pope Formosus's corpse was exhumed, dressed in full papal attire, and placed on trial by his successor, Pope Stephen. The corpse was accused of perjury and violating church law. A deacon was assigned to defend the dead pope, but unsurprisingly, Formosus was found guilty. His papal title was revoked, and his body was thrown into the Tiber River. The act was so unpopular that Stephen VI was eventually imprisoned and strangled to death. This event remains one of the strangest episodes in Vatican history. A war lasted 335 years without a battle. Some wars are long and bloody, but others are simply forgotten. The 335 years war between the Netherlands and the Isles of Scilly off England's coast began in 1651 during the English Civil War. No battles were fought, no casualties were reported, and eventually everyone just forgot the war existed. It wasn't until 1986 that a peace treaty was finally signed, officially ending one of the longest wars in history. The exploding whale, 1970 USA. When a massive whale carcass washed ashore in Florence, Oregon in 1970, authorities decided to dispose of it in the most extreme way possible, by blowing it up with dynamite. They thought the explosion would scatter the remains into the ocean. Instead, massive chunks of whale meat rained down on cars, buildings, and horrified onlookers. The event became an infamous lesson in what not to do with a whale corpse. The day it rained meat, 1876 USA. In Kentucky, 1876, pieces of raw meat mysteriously fell from the sky over a small farm. Witnesses described the meat as beef or mutton, but scientists later suggested it might have been vomited up by a flock of vultures mid-flight. The exact cause remains unknown, but the event is now known as the Kentucky Meat Shower. The time a Roman emperor declared war on Neptune. Caligula, the infamous Roman emperor, was known for his cruelty and madness, but one of his most ridiculous acts was declaring war on Neptune, the god of the sea. He ordered his soldiers to attack the ocean, slashing at the waves with swords. After defeating the sea, he had his men collect seashells as spoils of war. Historians believe this was either an elaborate joke or another sign of Caligula's deteriorating mental state. The Great Stink, 1858 London. In the summer of 1858, London was hit by a stench so unbearable that it brought the city to a standstill. Known as the Great Stink, it was caused by the River Thames overflowing with untreated sewage during a heat wave. The smell was so bad that Parliament had to suspend sessions, and curtains soaked in lime chloride were hung in the windows to mask the odor. This bizarre crisis finally forced the government to overhaul the city's sewer system, proving that sometimes it takes a literal stink to spark change. The Pig War, 1859, USA versus Britain. In 1859, tensions between the United States and Britain nearly escalated into war over a pig. On San Juan Island, now part of Washington state, an American settler shot a British-owned pig that was eating his potatoes. The British demanded compensation, the Americans refused, and soon both sides sent warships. Thankfully, cooler heads prevailed, and the only casualty was the pig. The absurdity of almost starting a war over pork makes this one of history's strangest near misses. The Battle of Los Angeles, 1942, USA. Just months after Pearl Harbor, on February 24th to 25th, 1942, Los Angeles erupted into chaos when air raid sirens blared and anti-aircraft guns fired into the sky for hours. The target? An unidentified object, or so they thought. No enemy planes were ever confirmed, and the incident is now believed to have been a case of wartime paranoia triggered by a stray weather balloon. Still, the sight of a major city unloading artillery at nothing remains one of World War II's oddest moments. The Tunguska event, 1908 Siberia. On June 30th, 1908, a massive explosion flattened over 800 square miles of Siberian forest, with a blast 1,000 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb. No crater was found, and scientists now believe it was caused by a meteor or comet disintegrating in the atmosphere. Locals reported a blinding light and deafening boom, yet the remote location meant the event remained a mystery for years. One of nature's most explosive unsolved puzzles. The monkey hangings. In 1789, a shipwreck off Hartlepool, England, left locals suspicious of a lone survivor. A monkey dressed in a French uniform, likely the crew's mascot. Convinced it was a French spy, this was during the Napoleonic Wars, the townspeople held a trial and hanged the monkey. The story of Hartlepool's monkey hangers is so absurd it's become a local legend. The Great Molasses Flood, 1919, USA. On January 15, 1919, a storage tank in Boston burst, unleashing 2.3 million gallons of molasses onto the streets. The sticky wave moved at 35 miles per hour, killing 21 people, injuring 150, and destroying buildings. Cleanup took months, and the smell lingered for years. It's a tragic yet surreal reminder of industrial mishaps gone wild. The War of the Stray Dog, 1925, Greece versus Bulgaria. In 1925, a Greek soldier's dog ran across the border into Bulgaria, and when the soldier chased after it, Bulgarian guards shot him dead. This sparked a brief but bizarre conflict known as the War of the Stray Dog. Greece invaded, casualties mounted, and the League of Nations had to step in to stop the madness, all because of one wandering pup. The moving statues of Easter Island, 1200 to 1500 AD. The massive Moai statues of Easter Island have puzzled historians for centuries. How did an ancient civilization move these multi-ton figures without modern tools? Recent theories suggest they walked them upright using ropes and manpower, a method so strange it sounds like something out of a fantasy novel. It's a testament to human ingenuity and sheer stubbornness. The London Beer Flood, 1814 England. In 1814, a brewery vat in London burst, sending 320,000 gallons of beer flooding through the streets. The wave demolished homes, killed 8 people, and left survivors scrambling in a boozy deluge. Unlike the molasses flood, some locals reportedly tried to drink their way out of this one. A grim yet oddly British twist. The self-mummifying monks, 11th to 19th century Japan. In Japan, some Buddhist monks practiced sokushinbutsu, self-mummification, by slowly starving themselves while meditating in sealed chambers. Over years, they consumed a diet of bark and resin to preserve their bodies, eventually dying in a meditative pose. Their mummified remains, still sitting upright, are a haunting and unbelievable relic of spiritual dedication. The Year Without a Summer, 1816 Global. In 1816, a volcanic eruption in Indonesia, Mount Tambora, plunged the world into darkness and cold. Snow fell in June, crops failed, and famine spread across Europe and North America. Known as the Year Without a Summer, it was so bizarre that it inspired Mary Shelley to write Frankenstein during a gloomy vacation. The radioactive teeth experiment, 1940s to 1950s USA. During the Cold War, the U.S. government collected thousands of baby teeth from children to measure strontium-90 levels from nuclear fallout. Parents mailed in teeth, lost naturally of course, and the data helped prove the dangers of atomic testing. It's a creepy yet oddly wholesome example of citizen science gone nuclear. The poisoned dress of Queen Elizabeth I, late 16th century England. Rumors swirled that Queen Elizabeth I narrowly escaped assassination via a poisoned dress sent by a French agent. The story goes that her lady-in-waiting tried it on first and died horribly. While likely exaggerated, the idea of a killer wardrobe adds a darkly theatrical twist to Elizabethan intrigue. The goat that started a riot, 1884 USA. In New York, an Irish immigrant's goat escaped and ate a shopkeeper's goods, sparking a brawl that escalated into a full-blown riot between Irish and Italian communities. Police barely contained the chaos, proving that even a goat could ignite human tempers in the melting pot of 19th century America. The Mysterious Moving Coffins, 1812 to 1838 Barbados. In a sealed vault in Barbados, coffins were found rearranged multiple times despite no signs of entry. Between 1812 and 1838, each time the vault was opened, the heavy lead coffins had shifted, some standing upright, others flipped. Explanations range from flooding to pranksters, but the mystery endures as one of history's creepiest unsolved cases. And there you have it, 25 of the most bizarre and unfamiliar events in history, These stories prove that truth is often stranger than fiction. From wars over pigs and dogs to exploding whales and self-mummifying monks, history never fails to surprise us. What do you think was the most unbelievable event on this list? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more mind-blowing historical facts.